terrible what's going on in the world. I mean, we're destroying it little by little by little. Fish have been wiped out. The seas are a disaster, and we're going to Mars to look for water up there. That bothers me a lot. Bothers me that men just can't stop killing each other. Now to the wash, Sally. Russians have great emotions, and they express it. They're not afraid of it. I'm not talking about Putin. I mean, they produced the greatest writers in the world in 100 years. Tolstoy, Chekhov, Zamyatin was not, Bulgakov, Babel, Gogol. By the way, most of those come from the Ukraine. They went to Russia for the literary scene there. But it's, all they have so many, Sergei Blin comes here, they force their really best people to leave. And what's left, unfortunately, are the people who run the country who are not their best. And it's a tragedy for the world. Russia could be got so much raw materials there, but all I know is oil and domination, like all we know is capitalism. Capitalism can be good, but it also can be crazy like it is here. Also love Russian music. Listen, here it comes. Prokofiev, Shostakovich, my favorite. Stravinsky, Tchaikovsky, Mussorgsky. Great music. You can feel the soul in that music. Also here, Gershwin. I love Gershwin. I see. I really, I didn't grow up in my house. There were no books. There were no books. My father worked very hard, and he had no time for books. My mother worked too. I was 4 years old at that time, and we had this house in Brooklyn, and in this house there was a dining room area that had a door that you had to have a key to get into, and it was heavily carpeted, big furniture, a long table, and I was never permitted in there. And my father would have his friends come in there to play cards, like once a week, and occasionally my mother would throw a party and they'd have it in there. I was asleep by that time, I was only 4. But when I was 4, don't forget, it's a different time, no television, a little radio. You were a kid, you were really a kid. There were no preschools that I know of, maybe in Connecticut, but not in Brooklyn. And so he took me into this room my father was in many ways great, but he had a terrible temper, and he was very critical. Took me into this room, and he sat at one end of the table, I sat at the other end, and he had shirt boards from the Chinese laundry, made in numbers from 1 to 9. I'm 4 years old. Now, a lot of maybe 4 years old kids were very good. I mean, he flashed them at me, and I had to identify them. I did 1, 2, 3, 4. But when it came to 6 and 9, I mean, I was in this room that was heavy and dark and a chandelier, and I was afraid of him. And I would make a mistake between 6 and 9, and he would get furious, and then he'd run them again, and I'd then say 9 was 6 rather than the 6 was 9, and he would get up, come around the table, pull down my pants. I didn't hit me hard with a strap, but he gave me a few straps. My mother would run in and say, "You can't do that to him. He's only 4 years old. 4 years old." He said, "What do you mean? My father did that to me." That was always his excuse. My mother helped me in reading and penmanship. I was always an A student in high school in those areas. In math, I flunked geometry, algebra. I flunked every math class I ever took. I was always going to summer school to repeat. Strangely enough, when one of my plays was done in New York, my first play, a gun play, one of the critics noted Mr. Udoff has a unusual mathematical turn of mind. I showed the review to my father. He said, "I said, you see, I could have been an Einstein." If it wasn't. He said, "What do you mean? My father did that to me." That was always his answer. My father did that to me. I walked into this cinema on 2nd Avenue or 1st, and I saw this film, which just, I didn't totally understand it, but I was enraptured by it. It was Italian. Well, it's going to come. Amazing to look at, and it was dealing with the same things that Italian literature was dealing with, and I thought, boy, the films could be as dense in a way as a really good novel. Sit. Listen. Over there, so you can hear it. I got myself a brand new, from what I had saved, Ford Mustang, which I wanted because in A Man and a Woman, one of the most romantic films ever made with my favorite Anouk Aimée, Jean-Louis Trintignant was driving his white Ford Mustang. So I thought if I got that, I could get, I didn't really, in my mind, I'd get Anouk Aimée. When I told my father I was quitting ABC, when I had a beautiful office overlooking the Museum of Modern Art, he gave me another one of his things. "You're a prince! You're leaving a princedom! Why are you doing this again?" To me, to him. In any case, I came out here. It was rough. A lot of unemployment lines. We would meet some old actors. Adolphe Manjou would send his driver to pick up his check. I always thought that was hysterical. And really, the unemployment line was a lot of fun. Now I understand, since I'm too old for unemployment anymore, and did well later on, you do it all through the internet or something, which I think is a loss. It was really nice to talk to people. But in any case, then I got my big break. I got involved with Nick Rogue, and I wrote Bad Timing. And I had some very good years after that. And then I had some real success in the theater. But now, at the ripe age of 80, in the film business in particular, you're through when you're 50. And that's old. Unless you're a major guy, major guy, which I never was. Ageism is rampant in America. It doesn't matter Hollywood, the theater, any business. You're sort of like you're sort of brushed aside, if not thrown into the wastebasket, and it's very sad. My last play, which was about Russians here in L.A., I finished about a year and a half ago. It was a semifinals at the O'Neill, which is a major play thing, which twice I've been to, and I've been trying to get it out. I worked on it and got into so many theaters, but nothing has happened. And after a while, you get tired of sending them out. My agents have all retired, and it's hard to get a new agent when you're my age. Oh, sure, was wonderful. We first met in 1964 at a party in Greenwich Village, and it was like one bathroom there. And we were online. We started talking, and I liked her. She had a great sense of humor, very important in anyone. And I said to her, if I want to get a hold of you, I'll get your number from the hostess. I didn't ask her for her number, and later on she told me that was she thought that was so interesting. So we started going out, and she was English, a wonderful accent. She went to St. Paul's School in London, and she had a great sense of humor. She loved the things I loved, film, literature, and at that time, I was still taking out some other women. I took out one lady who I got entrance to all literary parties in New York. She was Albert Camus' niece, and we were together off and on for a couple of months, maybe more than that, as I was with Shula, and then there was another lady. But in any case, she told her friends that I had let her believe I was going to marry her. I never said that. I would never say that to anyone. Wouldn't say that. And anyway, she left. When she got pissed off, she could, like a queen. She walked like a queen. She'd raise her nose and just walk away. And so she walked away on a ocean liner back to England. And we kept in touch all the time. And I remember I wrote her a letter, which I still have, which she kept, and which she said, which I said, the difference between us is you see the world in black and white, I see it in grays. And I went to London in '65. She had left earlier, and my friend said, don't call her, she hates you and all that. So I didn't call her. I wound up taking out another English girl. It turned out was a friend of hers who she met years later, but that's another story. And then I went back again in '70, and I brought her over here. We spent a great week in my old apartment, took her up to San Francisco. She went back, and I wrote her a letter saying, why don't you come over here and stay with me for a while? And she agreed to. So I flew her over. I was making money at that time as a writer. She agreed to that, and she came over. We lived together for 8-9 months. Terrific. She was a great cook. My friends loved her. I was by then around 41, and had this fear of, I guess, of getting married. I was a bachelor. I could do everything. I could cook. I had girlfriends. I had a nice apartment. But, she was special. So she left because her mother was very sick, and she was very close to her mother. Her mother later died, and I wrote her a letter to come over here and live with me again. And she said she'd come. I could live with her in England, but she would not live with me unless we got married. So I was thinking about it, etc., 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 and eventually I went to London, and we got married. We got married in October of '77, and we were married till she passed away in 2009. She was terrific. I miss her now more than ever. Talk to her every night. It's not easy when you've had someone so terrific.